My wife cheated with her boss, claiming it was to save our family. But then I found out she was secretly laundering $250, $0 of our inheritance to him. Now we're in a bitter legal battle over everything. Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here writing about how my wife, Emma, turned out to be a complete liar and cheat. Honestly, it all started with little things. Her being overly secretive with her phone, disappearing for hours without telling me where she was going, and the way she'd get defensive whenever I asked about her day. I always figured, okay, maybe she's just stressed at work or dealing with something personal. But then, the signs started piling up, and I realized I was missing something huge. It was a Tuesday evening when I decided to check her phone. I know, trust is supposed to be there, but after months of her dodging my questions and acting weird, I just couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I grabbed her purse when she was in the shower and I found her phone tucked away in a side pocket. I wasn't even planning to look, but curiosity got the better of me and I unlocked it. That's when I saw the messages, texts between her and her boss, Mark, that were way more than professional. They were flirty, suggestive, and the kind of messages that make your stomach turn. The worst part. She was calling him baby and he was calling her babe. I saw plans to meet up after work and there were even explicit photos exchanged. My heart just dropped. I couldn't believe it. Emma was cheating on me. I felt like my world was shattering into a million pieces. All those years, all the promises, the family we built, gone in an instant. I don't think I slept that night. I was numb, furious, and hurt all at once. The next morning, I confronted her. I told her I knew about her and Mark, and her face twisted into a mask of lies. She told me she was saving our marriage, that it was just sex, just a way to keep him happy so he wouldn't leave her. Said it was a mistake she made because she was desperate. She looked me dead in the eyes and said she'd never cheat if she didn't think she was doing it for the greater good. That was her excuse, that she claimed it was to save our family. I couldn't even process that. How does cheating save anything? It's like she was trying to justify her betrayal with some twisted logic that made no sense. I was devastated, but I also felt this burning rage. How could she be so callous, so manipulative? I was torn between wanting to break down and wanting to tear her apart. I told her I needed time to think, but inside I already knew the wheels were turning. I wasn't about to let her get away with this. I started digging deeper, and that's when I found out about the money. Turns out Emma had been secretly laundering $250, $0 of our inheritance, money we thought was safe, straight to Mark. She told me she was investing it for us, but I traced the transactions, and it was all going to him. That was a punch to the gut I didn't see coming. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial. She'd been playing us both, lying to my face while funneling our hard-earned money into his hands. I felt sick. How could she do this? How could she lie about everything, pretend to be the perfect wife while secretly screwing her boss and stealing from us? I was furious but also scared. What would happen next? My mind was racing with plans, revenge, justice, whatever it took to make her pay for what she'd done. I knew this was only the beginning and I wasn't going to go down without a fight. After I uncovered the truth about Emma's affair and her financial betrayal, everything changed. The ground beneath me felt unstable, like I was walking on cracked ice that could give way at any moment. I couldn't focus, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her messages, her lying face, the way she looked at me like I was the problem when she was the one sneaking around behind my back. The betrayal cut deep, but what hurt even more was knowing she'd been so willing to destroy what we had just to keep her secret safe. I knew I had to confront her again, face her with everything I'd found. I waited until she came home that evening, trying to keep my voice steady but failing miserably. When she walked through the door, I was already sitting on the couch, arms crossed, eyes blazing. She tried to act casual, like everything was normal, but I wasn't having it. I laid out the proof, screenshots of the texts, the bank statements showing the laundering, the receipts from her investment accounts. Her face went pale, and for a second I thought she might break down. But instead, she looked at me with that bitchy smirk she always had when she thought she was in control. "Oh, come on, Jason," she snapped, rolling her eyes. "You're overreacting. It's not what you think. Mark and I, it's just sex. It's not a big deal. I did it to protect us. To keep him from leaving, from hurting our family more." Her words sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced them in front of a mirror. I felt my blood boil. She was trying to spin it, minimize it, make me think I was overreacting. But I knew better. I knew she was lying again, just like she always did. I asked her how she could lie so easily, how she could justify screwing around with her boss, stealing our inheritance, and then expect me to just accept it. She shrugged, still with that smirk, and said she did what she had to do. That she was doing it for us, for the kids, for the family. I told her that was bullshit, that her so-called saving was just her way of covering her own ass. I told her I'd seen enough, that I couldn't trust her anymore. But she insisted she loved me, that she never meant to hurt me, that she was just trying to keep everything afloat. That's when it hit me, her words, her excuses, they were all lies, every single one. She didn't care about the family. She cared about herself, about her secret life, about Mark. I felt a mixture of anger and heartbreak. I wondered how I could have missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind. I thought about all the times she dismissed my concerns, told me I was paranoid or jealous. Now I saw the truth. She'd been cheating, lying, stealing from us, and pretending to be the perfect wife all at once. But I also knew I couldn't stay silent. I had to do something. I started planning my next move, how to expose her, how to protect what little we had left. I was hurt, sure, but I was also furious. I was done being the guy who just took it. Emma thought she could manipulate her way out of this, but I was about to turn the tables. The first step was gathering evidence, more proof of her financial treachery, her affair, everything. I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequences. I knew this was just the beginning of a long, bitter fight, and I was ready for it. The more I dug into Emma's affairs, the angrier I got. I started pulling all the financial records I could find, bank statements, emails, even her phone logs. Turns out she'd been laundering that $250, $0 over the past year, funneling it through various accounts, fake companies, and offshore accounts she set up behind my back. She told me she was investing in some startup, claiming it was for our future. But it was all just a lie. Every penny was going straight to Mark, and she'd been lying to me about it the entire time. I also found out about her secret meetings with Mark. They'd been sneaking around for months, sometimes in hotel rooms, sometimes at her boss's house. I even found hotel receipts and pictures of them together, which she tried to dismiss as business trips or work-related meetings. Yeah, right. I could see through her bullshit. She was screwing her boss, lying about everything, and I was left with this pit in my stomach that just kept growing. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time with everything laid out in front of her. I waited until she was home alone, because I knew she'd try to spin her way out of it again, and then I laid it all on the table. I showed her the bank statements, the emails, the photos. I told her I knew about the affair, the laundering, everything. Her face twisted into this ugly sneer, and she yelled at me, calling me paranoid, accusing me of spying on her, and saying I was just jealous because I couldn't keep up with her. She got defensive, saying she'd only done everything to save our family, that Mark was just a means to an end, that she'd never loved him, only used him as a bargaining chip. She told me that she was doing what she had to do to protect us from financial ruin, and that I was just too blind to see it. I was so furious I almost lost it. How could she sit there and lie to my face like that? I told her her lies weren't going to work anymore, that I was done trusting her, that I was going to make sure everything came out in the open. That's when I decided I needed to take control of the situation. I contacted a lawyer, started gathering evidence for a divorce, and began planning how to get my money back. I also secretly hired a private investigator to follow her around, just to see if she'd slip up again. It was a brutal feeling, knowing she'd betrayed me so completely, that she'd been screwing her boss and stealing from us all while pretending to be the loving wife. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I finally saw her for who she really was, a manipulative, dishonest woman who'd do anything to cover her tracks. Meanwhile, Emma kept up her act of innocence, crying and pretending to be the victim whenever I pressed her. She told me I was overreacting, that I didn't understand her reasons, that I was just jealous and insecure. She said she loved me, that she'd never meant to hurt me, yet her actions told a different story. Watching her lie so effortlessly, I realized how deep her deception ran. She wasn't just cheating, she was destroying everything we'd built, all for some stupid affair and greed. I knew I had to be careful. I couldn't let her get away with her lies anymore. I was preparing for a showdown and I wasn't going to back down. The betrayal was raw, but I was determined to fight for what was mine, my marriage, my money, my dignity. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. Emma's lies had finally caught up with her, and I was done being the fool. The next step was to expose her fully, and then decide what came next. I wasn't going to let her ruin me without a fight. The more I uncovered about Emma's double life, the more I realized how far she was willing to go to keep her secrets hidden. I thought I knew her, thought we had a solid marriage, but everything turned out to be a fragile house of cards. The financial records showed she'd been funneling money into offshore accounts, and I traced a good chunk of that $250, $0 straight to Mark's personal accounts. She'd been laundering our inheritance for months, pretending she was investing for our future, but it was all just a cover. That money was used to fund her affair, her lifestyle, her lies. I decided I needed to get proof beyond the digital trail. I hired a private investigator, someone I found through a friend who specialized in infidelity cases. Within days, he caught Emma meeting Mark at a fancy hotel downtown. There were photos, Emma in a tight dress, giggling and holding hands with him. The worst part, she looked carefree, like she didn't have a single worry in the world. It was a slap in the face. She was out there screwing her boss, while I was at home, clueless and trying to hold everything together. That afternoon, I confronted her again. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the money laundering, the secret meetings. I showed her the photos, the bank statements, the emails I had printed out. Her face went pale, then red with anger. She yelled at me, calling me paranoid and accusing me of invading her privacy. She said I was just jealous, that she was only doing what she had to do to save our family. Her voice was bitter, her eyes cold. I couldn't believe the audacity. She was trying to spin this, trying to make me doubt what I'd seen with my own eyes. I told her I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore, that I'd had enough of her lies, her manipulation, her betrayal. I told her I was done pretending everything was okay, that her actions had consequences. I threatened to take her to court to expose everything, to make sure she faced the repercussions of her actions. She scoffed, said I was overreacting, that I was just a jealous husband who couldn't handle her success. But I knew better. I knew this wasn't about jealousy. It was about honesty, respect, and trust, things she'd shattered completely. The emotional toll was overwhelming. I felt rage, heartbreak, and a sense of betrayal that cut deep. I kept asking myself how she could have lied so effortlessly for so long, how she could have looked me in the eye and say she loved me when she was screwing her boss and stealing from us. Every memory we shared, every promise she made, were they all just lies? I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind kept replaying all the moments she'd betrayed me, and the worst part was realizing I'd been blind. I'd trusted her blindly, and she'd used that trust to destroy us from the inside out. Despite everything, I knew I had to stay calm and strategic. I started documenting everything, saving emails, taking screenshots, recording her conversations whenever possible. I wanted to build a case, not just for the legal battle ahead, but also to make her see that I wasn't going down without a fight. I was already thinking about what my next move would be, how to protect what was left of my finances, how to hold her accountable, and how to keep my dignity intact. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life from her lies. I knew I couldn't turn back, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this one. After gathering all the evidence and seeing Emma's true colors exposed, I knew I couldn't just walk away from this mess. The betrayal wasn't just emotional anymore. It was now deeply intertwined with our finances and future security. I decided I had to take legal action, not just for the money she'd stolen, but to protect myself from any further damage she could do. I contacted a lawyer first thing the next day, laid out everything I had found, and prepared for a bitter fight. Emma, of course, tried to spin it all again, crying, saying I was ruining everything, accusing me of trying to control her. She called me jealous, insecure, and claimed I was paranoid. But I wasn't buying her BS anymore. I had proof of her affair, her laundering, her lies. I told her I was filing for divorce, and I was going to get a court order to freeze her accounts. I also planned to sue for the return of the stolen inheritance. I knew I had a long road ahead, but I was dead set on making her pay for what she'd done. Meanwhile, I kept up with the investigation, hearing more professionals to verify her activities. I also started documenting every interaction, her angry phone calls, her dismissive attitude, her attempts to manipulate the situation. I wanted to be prepared for whatever she threw my way. The emotional toll was immense. I felt a mixture of rage, sadness, and a strange sense of relief that I finally had some clarity. I had been living in her web of lies for too long, and now I was finally pulling myself out. One of the most shocking moments came when I discovered Emma had been secretly meeting with Mark even after I confronted her. I found new emails where she was planning their next rendezvous, even talking about how she'd cover her tracks better next time. That was the point where I realized this was no longer just about some affair. It was about her actively trying to deceive and manipulate me in every possible way. I felt a surge of anger. This wasn't just cheating. It was a calculated attack on our entire lives. I also learned that Emma had been telling her friends and family that I was abusive and controlling, trying to turn everyone against me. That made me furious. She was so good at lying, at spinning stories, that even some people I thought trusted me started to doubt me. But I had proof, and I was determined to clear my name and hold her accountable. I wasn't going to let her ruin everything we'd built without a fight. I knew I was in for a battle, not just legally but emotionally, and I had to stay strong. All I could think about now was how betrayed I felt, how I'd trusted her for so long, and how she'd thrown that trust away for her own selfish reasons. I'd been naive, maybe, but I also knew one thing: she was not the person I thought she was. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone who was manipulative, greedy, and unfaithful. I finally understood that sometimes love isn't enough to fix a broken person. I was ready to fight for my rights, for my dignity, and to start rebuilding my life without her. It was going to be a long road, but I refused. Let her win. In the end, everything I thought I knew about Emma turned out to be a lie. The woman I married, the woman I trusted with everything, she was a master manipulator, a thief, and a liar. The legal battle was brutal. Emma fought hard, trying to deny everything, claiming I was making false accusations to ruin her reputation. But the evidence was overwhelming. The bank statements, the emails, the photos, the witness accounts from the private investigator, they all painted a clear picture. The court didn't buy her lies. The judge ordered her to return the stolen inheritance, and she was hit with charges related to financial fraud and breach of trust. It was a long, exhausting process, but I finally felt some justice. I also filed for divorce, and I made sure she couldn't get away with hiding more money or assets. The settlement was tough, but I managed to recover what I could, and I made sure she paid for her deception. The hardest part was rebuilding myself emotionally. For a long time, I'd felt lost, betrayed, and angry, so many feelings I didn't know how to process. But over time, I realized I had to focus on healing and moving forward. I started going to therapy, talking through everything, and leaning on friends and family who supported me. I learned that trust is fragile, and sometimes, love isn't enough to save a relationship when someone is fundamentally dishonest. Looking back, I can see how naive I was for so long, but I also see that I have grown stronger because of it. I learned that you can't control other people's actions, but you can control how you respond. I've become more cautious, more aware, and more determined to protect myself and what I value. I don't regret the painful lessons. They've made me more resilient. To anyone out there going through something similar, trust your instincts. Don't ignore the signs, no matter how small. When someone shows you their true colors, believe them. And if you find yourself betrayed, remember that you're stronger than you think. It hurts, yes, but you can survive, rebuild, and come out better on the other side. I did it, and so can you. Life's too short to stay in a toxic, dishonest relationship. Cut your losses, fight for your peace, and never let anyone make you feel less than you deserve.